Yes.
Bogdanov, he did it.
Il bort.
He went all in.
Dump it. Oh! Oh!
You heard it here first. Bitcoin is going to zero. When it comes out, zero.
Just hodl, bro.
How the hell are we?
I'm good, buddy. Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here amongst such fine company.
The pleasure's all ours. I'm just going to give a little shout out to a few people. First of all, Johnny Reed. Nice to see you, Johnny Reed. He's an OG. He goes right back to the early days. I think he started early 2017. Andy from Operation Crypto, he also started late 2017. Martaverse, wow, got some big turnouts today. We're going to give it 5 minutes, guys. Let everyone get in, and then we'll sort of start the show. We haven't really got any scripted questions. We're just going to go with the flow. You know the score, bro.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Keep it as cool and just organic as possible, mate. I know that's the way you guys approach things, mate. I've been a fan of you guys for a while. Bit Shaman, where are you from, mate? I'm detecting some semblance of a northern accent there, mate. Are we from a similar neck of the woods, buddy?
I was sort of trying to work out where you were from for a minute there. Yeah, so I'm Cheshire.
Yeah, Cheshire, mate. You're from posh Manchester. I'm from poor Greater Manchester, so I'm from Wigan, mate. Initially, but I spent a lot of my time in Manchester, mate. I went to uni there. I did my first professional qualification there. So yes, somewhere between Wigan and Manchester, bud.
Unbelievable, because you don't meet many people from this neck of the woods, do you? Really? Not who are kind of famous.
Oh no, I'm with you, mate. Yeah, there's not that many actually. I remember being, Lady of Crypto is getting pretty big now, and it's quite refreshing hearing her northern accent. I think she's from near Blackpool. But yeah, it's always nice to hear someone from the north.
Yeah, she's from up this way. I'm not sure exactly, the exact location, but Andy from Operation Crypto just said to me, "You'll have to join the breakfast crew. We go for breakfast every 2 weeks in Wigan. So if you're from Wigan,
yeah, are you? I'm not sure if this is a joke, guys. Are you serious? You actually go for breakfast in Wigan?
Yeah, well. Listen, I used to be an electrical engineer. I used to work at Heinz, and Heinz is the biggest food plant in Europe. Heinz,
yeah,
and that's where they make all the beans. So we're better, bro.
Where better is there to get a decent English brekkie with a couple of black puddings, right, than in Wigan itself? Oh wow,
exactly.
Amazing! No, I'm not based there now, bud. So I moved out to Portugal in the last 6 months. So to be honest, that move's been taking up quite a lot of my time recently. It's part of the reason I've been reasonably quiet on Twitter and haven't been doing any spaces or anything. But it's nice to start getting back into it, bud.
Okay, sorry. Let me just go back a little bit there. You just said that you moved to Portugal. When did you move to Portugal? Sorry.
So the last 3 months, mate. The last 12 weeks. So it's been a case of getting the house set up, just getting the kids in school. I'm probably a little bit older than the average crypto person. I won't give my exact age away, guys. But I have 2 kids. So getting them set up into primary school here. And yeah, just trying to push myself into Portugal, get involved in the culture, find out what's going on. But it's been amazing. I mean, I managed to have a barbecue yesterday, mate, in early November. You don't often get the chance to do that in Wigan. So
yeah. How old are your children? Sorry, I sound like a pedo. I'm just asking because how old are your children?
They're 5 and 6, mate, basically. So
I was thinking about making the move myself. My little boy's 5, and I just thought, what a nightmare! Like, having to obviously saw all the kids out and whatever else. What are they thinking of the whole move?
It's a great question, mate. To be honest, I was very apprehensive about them, pulling them out of their existing school where they had mates, but they've really, really taken to it like ducks to water. They're loving it. They've really, really settled in. Sasha, how are you finding Tassis, buddy? One of them's in the room with you now. How are you finding Tassis, bud? Are you enjoying it? Normal, which...
Oh, bless them. Bless them. One second, the dog's going mental here. Yeah, the guard dog. I've got a sausage dog. Acts as a guard dog. So you moved to Portugal. Is that because of, for tax reasons or also for the weather?
No, it's a very fair question, mate. I think, especially when we're in crypto. So, I married my wife out here, mate, in 2013, and we absolutely fell in love with the place then. So, we said we'd love to move back then, and we always had a kind of, how would you call it, mate, a romantic stroke spiritual connection to the place. So there was always that love, and that was even before I'd heard of Bitcoin, mate, or Ethereum. But the positive tax elements compared to some other European jurisdictions, they didn't push us away. But it wasn't the driving factor, man. It absolutely wasn't the driving factor. You probably know, mate, the tax situation it's changing day by day, and they're certainly working on making it less lucrative than it was before.
Yeah, I was going to say, because me and Panda were looking at buying a place out in Portugal back in 2020, weren't we, Panda? And a lot of it was to do with the taxes. But as you said then, I did a lot of research. I was thinking Spain or Portugal, and there's people that I've done reviews who've lived in Spain for 4 or 5 years, then gone to Portugal on a holiday and said Portugal is a much better place to live. So as you said then, a lot of people fall in love with Portugal. My issue is that it's on the Atlantic and it's not on the Mediterranean. So you're not getting that kind of... Does that make a big difference? Are you on the seaside?
Hey, bud, I just lost you there, mate. There was about 30, 40 seconds where I couldn't really hear you particularly well, mate. Can you repeat that, bud?
I'll try. Yeah. So I was basically saying that there's a lot of people who prefer Portugal over Spain, but the issue for me was that the Atlantic is not the Mediterranean, is it? And the Mediterranean gives you that sort of warm, calm. It's not tidal. Are you on the seaside over in Portugal? And what's it like? What's the sea like? Is it rough?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question, mate. It's very, very cold, as you say, so completely different to Spain in that sense, and very rough. Now, if I jump in the sea, I'm mainly doing it to wake up. I'm not doing it for a relaxing. So for me, it suits me really well, mate. I'm even considering taking up some surfing, which I've never done before. But it's rough, it's beautiful, it's a bit rawer. But yeah, it's freezing, mate. The sea's absolutely freezing. Yeah, but I quite like that. You jump in there in the morning, 7:30, go for a little swim, and it wakes you up, mate. And it kind of enlivens the senses a bit.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because I'm looking into cold water swimming myself. By the way, guys, we'll get right into this now. We're just kind of waiting for the numbers to crack up. So a little bit of small talk here. But I'm actually really interested in what you're saying here because me and Panda were looking at moving over to Portugal or buying a holiday home over there. And as you said then, surfing is supposed to be one of the best hotspots for surfing. So in that sense, yeah, I completely agree. And I also agree with, cold. I have a cold shower every single morning. It's the best thing. It's changed my life. So I guess going in the cold water in the morning is even better, Plus you get that sort of natural, organic feel to it rather than throwing your head under a fucking cold shower.
No, I'm the same, mate. I started cold showering about a year ago, but after, reading several Tim Ferriss books where they say this is a great thing. And I think it's been really beneficial for me. So, saltwater swimming is supposed to be really good for you. So you're essentially combining the two, mate, which is really, really nice.
Love that. So people are still coming into the spaces, but let's kick this off because we are recording this, so anyone can listen to it back. So, how did your journey into crypto start? Because you've been around for a while, haven't you? You're sort of an OG. You've been around sort of what? When did you start? Give us the sort of intro story, bro.
Yeah, it is interesting, mate. So I started in mid 2017, and I guess a lot of people that did start then are referred to, colloquially as OGs now, and it always it feels odd being called an OG at times because, when I started in 2017, that there was that worry then that, hey, this was the end, this is the peak, and of course it was getting into the end of what was a bubble. To some extent at the time, which popped and then reinflated, mate. But when I got into it, I had no idea that this was ultimately going to kind of dominate my life, both intellectually, temporarily, in terms of time as well. But so I'm from a TradFi background, guys. I'm a chartered accountant by trade. I worked for a lot of investment banks, and there was a guy one day in mid 2017 that started banging on about Ethereum, and just sounded really interesting to me. Made a lot of sense conceptually, and I went home. I bought a bit. I think I put like $500 in, and then from there in, I just started to spend a lot of my waking life where I otherwise would have been reading about crypto and getting into it. And yeah, it came to dominate a lot of my time, mate. I started to dip my feet into trading the end of 2017. Wasn't particularly great at it. I think a lot of the success that I had in 2017 was just down to blind luck. I had no idea what I was doing, but everything was running. And then we got hit by the 2018 bear, mate, and that was savage. It was a painful lesson, one that I think, in retrospect, was a very worthy and beautiful one. And yeah, spent a lot of time just researching, reading up, learning how to trade, mate, and then found myself approaching the next cycle with a lot better than previously.
Let's just focus on the last bear market first before we move on. Now, we all know what happened at the end of 2017. It was rough, wasn't it? Now, did you lose much money in that crash, or did you manage to take profits? Did you make the same mistake we all made, as in, not taking profits and riding everything up and back down? And how did you deal with the actual crash in 2017?
Yeah, it's a great question, mate. So I've always got out of, if we refer to them as bubbles, I mean, you can call it what you want. And by the way, guys, I think a lot of people use the term bubble in a kind of pejorative sense. And when I use that in terms of crypto, I don't mean it in a pejorative sense. I think this space is ultimately going to outperform most sectors over the next decade. But I do think that it does move in these cyclical peaks and troughs. So when I talk about a bubble, I'm simply referring to it in terms of the up and the down movement, not in the sense that I think this is going to deflate, dissipate, and go away. I just want to clarify that up front. So I've always got out of each cycle in profit, mate, even in 2017, 18. But I lost a serious amount of money, if you're looking at it in an absolute sense. I mean, God, I probably put about 5K in 2017, mate, and it went up at least 100 times, and then I probably lost like 85% of that, mate. But thought a lot about it and thought, the important thing to look at, I think, when you go through these cycles, mate, is to look at it philosophically and think, okay, do I have more than last time? If not, did I learn a lesson here? If I did, how am I going to put this, to use next time? And I think it was very, very positive in terms of the lessons that I learned, mate. And again, guys, this time I've lost. I'm down a lot compared to September 2021. But again, substantially up from where I was before. I learned a lot of lessons again. But I'm in this space for the long term, and I do think that Web3 blockchain, crypto, whatever name you want to call it, whatever whatever name you want to put to it, I think that it's going to outperform most of the sectors over the next 10 years, irrespective of whether rates are at 0% or 3%, mate. So
absolutely love that. Yeah, I absolutely. What I love about you is you are the exact same breed as me. Everything you're saying, as in what you said about the crash being the most beautiful thing in hindsight, because it gave you all that perspective, the lessons, the knowledge, the toughness, the mental toughness, the psychological understanding of the market, yourself, other people. From that sense, in hindsight, it was the absolute most amazing thing. And so now we know you were here in the last bear market. Who were you trading with? Who was your crew? Because you were sort of part of Spectra, weren't you?
Yeah, I know the guys. I know Capo, Brown, Reed, JZ. Have a huge amount of time for all of them. They've all been absolutely great guys to know over the past few years. But I only met most of those guys in, say, 2020, mate. In 2017, I didn't really follow anyone outside of the big accounts like Vitalik. But I did. Some people probably don't know this, mate, but I helped set up the early Chainlink community. So Chainlink was one of the first projects that I invested in, and helped set up, I guess, what subsequently became known as the Marines. But I kind of left it. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Link in my heart, and I think Link is ultimately going to do really, really well. But I knew a lot of the Link guys back in the day. I used to speak to Sergey from time to time because it was really, really at the very beginning. But yeah, it was weird back then, man. I mean, nowadays you have these established accounts that you follow for specific either news or training advice or setups. It was a little bit more disparate back then, a bit more fragmented. So for me, I was just following accounts like Vitalik. Yeah.
I found that myself as well. It was much smaller, the space, wasn't it? There was not many people around, and everyone sort of knew everyone. And it's nothing like how it was now. I mean, I can only think of two women in the space, Wendy O and Crypto Finally. And I'm pretty glad that there wasn't, this sort of simp farming culture back then, because who knows? We might have ended up being simps.
Well, Crypto Finally was pretty much simp farming and still is, to be honest.
Yeah, but she wasn't good looking, bro.
Ooh, that was rough, man. That was rough.
That was rough. Yeah.
Looking to get cancelled.
So what I think we want to know now, before we move on, is what were the biggest lessons you sort of learned? Let's get more into the OG aspect of sort of you sort of was you dabbling in low caps back in the last bear market, or was it more towards 2020 when you met all them guys? What were the biggest things you learned and took from it?
So my strategy in 2017, mate. So I remember I bought ETH. And then I was speaking to this guy on the tennis court one night. I played a bit of tennis, and he was banging on about XRP. And I used, what was that exchange where you could just swap one thing for the other at the time? It was the DEX of the time. Change something.
I know of Ether Delta.
No,
but Ether Delta didn't have XRP and stuff.
No, so. There's a big guy I can't believe that I'm blanking on this, guys. I didn't know about Ether Delta then, mate. It was one of the more the bigger names. But I changed my ETH into XRP, and then I remember going home and reading all about XRP and being horrified. And then I went back on and I changed my XRP back into ETH. And I was like, this makes sense to me. But Bitcoin always made a lot of sense to me as well, guys, conceptually. I have a degree in ancient history, and this idea, you hear Ray Dalio talking about it a lot nowadays, of the demise of civilizations being accompanied by a debasement of their currency. That always made a lot of sense to me as a historian. So the idea that Bitcoin or Ethereum might have a place in the future world of finance for us made a lot of sense. But I did get caught up in the icon pre-sale. Well, it wasn't actually pre-sales back then, guys. You would kind of register for the ICOs. So
Yeah.
I remember reading up on Chainlink, and it sounded like it had a place in the future. And I tried to get into the Chainlink pre-sale, didn't happen. And I went on to EtherDelta at the time. And my first, the first time I ever used EtherDelta was going on there and swapping my ETH for Chainlink. And after that, I basically held ETH and Link throughout most of 2018, 2019. Traded a few things. I only started dabbling in low caps. Yeah, probably 2020. Had some success there, with some of the low caps that went ballistic, like GRA, ZCX at the time, a few others. But yeah, when things started to go to pot again, guys, in late 2021, I saw the way the wind was blowing, because I remember hearing that the people that were talking about, say, micros and even medium caps back in 2019, 2020, they were taking a lot of heat. So I've kept my timeline and the things that I talk about related to majors mainly since then. I principally only trade majors now, guys. And if I do take a low cap position, which I do occasionally, I tend not to tweet about it, because there's so much of a backlash against it right now. There's a lot of accusations about people scamming and trying to dump on the followers. And
let's just stop here, because it's a good point that you're bringing up here now. Let's discuss this, because we are at a sort of period in time where being an influencer, a traditional crypto influencer, is almost an offense now, isn't it? Where do we stand now then? I mean, do you think that the days of old school where it was shill your bags are sort of, because are frowned upon? Because you've got all kinds of stuff going on now that is unethical. Like, the simp farmers I mentioned before, they're just herding up the simps, OnlyFans. I mean, is really shilling your bags that much of an offence when you've got all this other stuff going on? What's your thoughts on that?
No, it's a great question, mate. I think, look, for me, and I'm not just talking about crypto, guys, I'm talking about my general approach in life, is that there's one thing that matters more than anything else, right? And it's intentions. If I go out and kill someone in a car, and if I intended to do it, that makes me a horrible, heinous person, right? But if I was completely trying to, that person came out drunk in the road and I did everything in my power to kind of swerve around them, my intention, even though the outcome may be the same, my intention is the key thing that should define me in that moment. And I genuinely think it's the same with trading and how you communicate to followers, right? What is my intention? If you're an influencer and you find a low cap, a medium cap, and you genuinely think this is a project with a great product that has a future, that has longevity, and you're telling your followers because you simply want to, help this brand grow, and you think, hey, everybody wins here. That's substantially different to somebody that, hoovers up something when nobody else is looking, simply with the sole purpose of dumping on the followers. So I do think, mate, that the principal thing that matters here is intention. And right now, irrespective of someone's intention, because we're in a bear market, because everything's down so much, most people are assumed to have bad intentions, even though that's absolutely not the case. I do think as the as things do become more bullish, that people's intentions are going to count for a lot more again, and people are going to give people a little bit more leeway. I hope that answers the question, mate. My apologies if it got a bit philosophical and convoluted.
You had some really good points there. I also find it actually funny when you are shilling something which you actually believe in. You believe in a tech, you believe in a team, everything is perfect. And then people go like, yeah, but you're just chilling your bag, you filled your bags beforehand. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've done my research. Should I give you the token first so that you buy in and then I buy in later? Or what's your point? That's kind of like the place we are at right now. So they want everything for free. They want your research. They want everything you've put in, and then they want to buy before you so that they can fucking dump on you.
That's just people who are new into the space, because when I first started, I knew someone who made $6 million in 2017 in 7 months, and he told me the same story, Panda. He said exactly what you said then. He told somebody a project, and they said to him, "You've already bought it, now you want me to buy it." And you sort of go through that. I think it cycles, just like the market cycle. People's behavior and attitude towards them also cycles. But what I'm finding in this run is that there seems to be a lot of meme tokens and like charity tokens and safe launches, and just it's never ending. The bullshit is not dying down. It's just heating and heating, and I'm like, so
makes sense though. If you think about the average person, let's be honest, the average person is a fucking simple-minded pleb. Let's just put it that way. And meme tokens are perfect for them. They don't do any research. It's like a nice looking dog. It's funny. And they're just buying in, hoping that there's another fucking pleb coming around the corner and buying at a higher price. So I don't think we will ever get rid of meme tokens. We might even get more of meme cycles than we have right now already. And yeah, so fundamentally strong projects still have their place, and big money will never go all in into meme tokens. But like the average Joe is definitely trading meme tokens and will keep doing so.
And I do think, guys, as well, that meme tokens, they do fulfill. There is a little bit of a degen in everyone, and I used to, before I discovered crypto, a bit shame, and you probably remember the Grand National, right, mate? It's a big annual race that we have in the UK.
Yeah. It's right near me. It's right near me.
Is it right? So I would never be a big gambler, but it was culturally Jesus Christ, guys, culturally appropriate that every year we'd go and have a bet on the Grand National, and I think to some extent meme tokens are fulfilling that role for a lot of new people that join and a lot of youngsters, and I think that's fine, right? It's okay to have a gambling element to this entire space, as long as you weren't, if you're promoting this stuff, as long as you weren't saying that it really does have decent fundamentals, that it does fulfill some kind of actual narrative, as opposed to saying, listen, guys, I'm just buying this for an absolute punt. I have no idea how it's going to go, could go to zero. This is me. And I think that's fine. But you've got to be upfront about your intentions. You've got to explain exactly how you're doing this. If you've gone out as well and bought 10% of the supply with the sole purpose of dumping on your followers, then that's obviously a heinous thing to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
But there are, 100%. So there are people out there though doing that. So I don't want to sit here too long. But the point that you made in the last two sort of answers were absolutely spot on. So we've covered the bear market, we've covered some of the sort of strategies. Now you've got into low caps. Let's kind of move on to when you became, what sort of project? You mentioned VRA, that did run in the end, but do you remember back in 2019, it just sort of channeled for so long, and there was a whale group manipulating VRA for so long, and it really put me off. But eventually, it did just fly, and I knew quite a few of those whales back then. And once it flew, they were all buying Lambos and whatever else. So they held. To be fair, they made a lot of money.
Yeah, I think so. I went through this phase of knowing very little, mate. And you know, to some extent, I think we're all we're all always there. It's a beautiful kind of philosophical standpoint to have about yourself that you always should be learning. And but then in 2019-20, when I was doing a lot of research and getting into what a lot of people call FA, I started to believe that FA mattered more than now. And one thing that I've really realized, say, over the past 2 years is that it's narrative over anything else. And the way that I differentiate and that I differentiate narrative to fundamentals is that, you know, fundamentals, there really is something there, right? There's something that actually differentiates the project, whether it's in terms of tech, in terms of the tokenomics, in terms of the team. And then there's the narrative where people believe there is something that differentiates it, but it isn't actually there. And I think the reason that a lot of these projects move is because there is a narrative, and these narratives almost always ultimately, get found wanting. But if you can identify those narratives as they start to emerge, ride it up. And I guess it's another way of saying kind of never marry your bags, because it's very rare that the narrative ultimately matches the fundamentals. Now, sometimes it does, right? It happened with ETH. You know, that's what's led ETH to being number 2, and probably ultimately going to be a project that brings a lot of enduring value to the world. And maybe that's true of Solana, polkadot. You know, that where the fundamentals ultimately do tally and match the narrative, but often there's a huge disparity between narrative and fundamentals, and it's about identifying that narrative as it emerges. Does that make some sense, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. You've put it really well. You've seen it, for example, with move to earn, dog tokens, all that kind of stuff. So when you're early on a narrative, when you can early identify those narratives, you're making fucking big bucks, but they usually don't last too long. Like the dog hype is still out there everywhere, but for example, move to earn was pretty short-lived. We had like, I don't know, three bigger projects move to earn, and the rest was just small shitcoins which died straight away. The rest is also still dumping. Even Stepin is sort of dumping. Definitely not seeing their all-time highs anytime soon. So yeah, you've put it really well. And going back to, you've mentioned that you built sort of like the Link Marines. Was that your biggest gainer, or would you tell us what was like your biggest moneymaker?
Yeah, it's a great question, mate. Link kind of really helped me overall, mate, and I do think that it is a project that has a space in the ultimate Web3 world. Probably Link, mate, in terms of absolute value. I do think ETH is going to be the one that makes a lot of people wealthy next cycle, and I'm talking there about actual enduring value over time. There's going to be a lot of low caps, a lot of mid caps that dramatically outperform it. But in terms of if you can assess the start and end value, I think ETH will be up there. It's going to outperform a lot over the long term.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I know Sam's getting a lot of heat right now, and I absolutely get why. Some of these comments recently in regards to legislation have been a little bit worrying, but I think it would be pretty foolish to bet against Sam in the same way that it was quite foolish to bet against CZ in the previous bear market. On a kind of interrelated note, though, it was BNB that led us out of the last bear market. It was one of the first coins that really moved on the Sats pair, and seeing that happen now on BNB, there's also given me some confluence, along with other factors, that I do think that we may well have bottomed.
Yeah, BNB is an absolute monster, man. Nothing is performing like BNB, and I'm also like thinking Binance is not going anywhere. For me personally, I already see Binance just too big to fail. They're making more revenue than like established banks, which are like 300 years old and amongst the biggest banks in the world and stuff. So Binance really, I don't know, CZ is just a fucking genius. Within a couple of years, becoming like one of the most richest person on the planet, building one of the biggest brands on the planet, especially in the financial system. What would you say about Binance? Do you think they're already too big to fail?
I think it's a great question, mate. I mean, I've got a bit of a funny story actually in relation to the old 2017, 2018. So I had an opportunity, guys, to invest in Binance at the time, and I chose an alternative and competing platform called Mothership. I don't know whether anybody.
Mothership, never heard of it.
Well,
Yeah. Sorry, I was investing. I'm still holding I'm still holding it, but it was on.
How much is worth? Happy Meal?
Mothership was supposed to be like a platform to sort of adopt all these all these ether. I mean, I fucking forget half it now, but I was holding it on Crypto Hub. Cryptopia.
Cryptopia, mate. Cryptopia.
Yeah.
Mine's still on there as well, bit shaming. Yeah, it's same situation as me, but I had a huge amount on there. I've been accumulating it over time, and in retrospect, Kobe has a similar story. If you look at so Kobe, I think Mothership was one of the last projects that he actually pushed to his followers. He was probably like 45,000, 50,000 followers back then. And again, I think his intentions were good. He spoke about it on a couple of podcasts and on a couple of tweets as well, that he genuinely thought that this was going to be the Binance at the time. And in retrospect, it's easy to look back now and say, God, we know why Binance succeeded and Mothership didn't. But yeah, I put my Kex eggs all in the Mothership basket, and I turned down BNB Binance at the time. But no, I think CZ takes a lot of heat. I think some of the things that he's done have been brilliant, genius. If you compare the UX, the look and feel of Binance compared to FTX, it's a different world. It's a different ball game. I wouldn't bet against Sam, but yeah, I would absolutely not bet against CZ either. And I quite like the guy. I see him in interviews, and he's like, "Hey guys, I don't really buy any nice clothes. I get a $5."
He really doesn't.
Right? Well, I kind of you've got to respect people that have billions in the bank and are literally just getting up in the morning to work and bring about value, right? Because he's not doing it for the clothes and the fast cars, right? He's doing it he clearly has some other purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. I think that's absolutely a good thing.
He's on another level. Like he's really not doing it for the money. I think it's more like for leaving a legacy. If he continues to build out Binance as he does right now and pushing crypto, then he's going to be like sort of like the next guy in history next to Satoshi and maybe Vitalik.
I don't want to sell Sam out here. I also quite like Sam as well in the sense that Sam's getting a really hard time right now, but he's been really into this something called effective altruism, and he's agreed to put a huge amount of his money to charity, and he does spend a lot of time on philanthropic avenues. I know there's a lot to criticize him about in terms of his support of Biden and the
I was just about to say.
So
well, I mean, I'm pretty sure he does it because he thinks it's the right thing. So it's not because he's a bad person or anything. In his opinion, it's the right decision and the right thing to do.
Yeah, according to the foundational principles with which he kind of, lays out and proceeds in his life, it's consistent. But I think what he's done in terms of the space, some of the projects that he saved during this bear market and said that he would save, I do think that overall he's a force for net good. I'm going to say net good as opposed to good because, you know, everybody is conflicted and has good and bad. But I do think he's a force for net good overall. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me with that, and that's fine. But yeah.
Okay, I've got a question here. What advice? This is sort of like one of those fucking. Everyone's used this on Twitter 1,000 fucking times, but I am genuinely interested to find out what advice would you give yourself if you had the chance, you know, to tell yourself now, so to sort of help the newer people coming in now. What's the best advice you would give them? What have you learned, you know, from your journey?
Join the Gem Hunters.
I would have took your handle before you got it. Bit hunter man.
That was a good one. I love that, bro.
It's a great question, bud. So do you mean do you mean what advice would I give my younger self, like if I was getting into the space?
Yeah.
Or I do think, and I've got to say, so when I met like Brown and Capo, and one thing those guys always did more than me was they were great at holding, and I've always had itchy fingers. You know, I started to consider myself a trader before I was one, and I really think sometimes, you know, when you, again, guys, I'm not talking about marrying a bag here, but once you see the trend change, once a bullish narrative emerges, right, just steady your hands, ride it out, you know. Once you start seeing the obscene things, people getting Bitcoin tattoos, and you know these signifiers like Musk going on to what was the show he went on, guys? Musk?
Was it Friday Night Live or something? Or Saturday Night Live?
It was something like that, maybe. You know what? When you see these things happen, okay. But I've often sold my bags too early, mate, and I'll probably still continue to do it. So I would say to most people, you genuinely will sell yourself short if a bullish trend emerges. Just hold on to it. Have steadier hands.
Yeah.
Don't flit in and out of things. And
you can't make money selling. Selling doesn't make money. You know.
Did anyone else hear piano right now?
I heard some piano there, and I thought we were going to get something pretty emotional. I loved it.
You are not alone. There was definitely a piano. I was very confused.
So that made, and you know what as well? I think so back in the day, guys, I got a little bit too idealistic as well. And what I mean by that is I remember saying, I would never trade XRP, you know, because it was against the values of decentralization, and I would never trade TRX. And then I kind of realized that overall, you know, outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple of other projects, most of this stuff is GAC. It's absolute GAC. And in general, you shouldn't be afraid to trade anything. You know, it's not what you buy, it's when you buy. And, you know, I've been happily trading XRP recently, even though I despise the project in terms of, you know, its fundamentals, where it's ultimately going to bring the space overall. I'll very happily trade something now if there's liquidity there, if there's a narrative there. So I'm not going to get idealistic about things. Now, that's not going to, you know, that doesn't mean that I will hold XRP into the long term. Absolutely wouldn't. You know, probably my long term portfolio is only going to consist of Bitcoin and Ethereum, along with a couple of other, say, more TradFi investments. But in general, you know, don't be afraid to trade GAC if the narrative is there.
That's a very good point right there. I was also holding off from trading meme tokens for a long time and missing out on all those gains. Like, you don't have to go full retard and trade them all day, but like when you find one occasionally which seems to be undervalued, not pumped yet, it's definitely not a bad thing to jump in for a couple X's.
And again, mate, it's all about, you know, communicate this in a good way to your community, because I see there are people like BitBoy and what's that guy, David Gockenstein or something, that
Oh, I hate that guy, man.
they're talking about XRP as if they love it when they're simply doing it to get followers. They have no love. For me, I'll say, like, guys, look, I'm jumping into XRP here because I think the narrative's there. I think the trend looks good. I despise this project. I hate it. I would never hold this, but I think this is a great trade now in the short term. And yeah, I think as long as you're communicating and are upfront about it, mate, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, totally agree. Did you trade today's FOMC meeting, or did you just completely stay out of the market?
It's a good question, mate. I didn't trade today, but I do think that the result of this FOMC midterm is actually going to be good, in the sense that I was expecting 75 basis points. That's been priced in, and I think now the risk here is now starting to go to not being long. So I've been buying dips. I think, though I'm not convinced with certainty that the bottom is in, I think that the chances that the bottom is in is more likely than the other way. I'd say like 65-35, mate, 70-30. So
I absolutely love that, and it's great that you came onto this sort of subject on where you think the market's going, because we're going to sort of come to an end now. But before we do close this, I just sort of want some. Can you give us some closing comments on, in regards to people? Where do you think the markets are going to go, sort of, midterm, next year? Do you think we're going to pick back up end of next year towards the next halving, or what's your thoughts on the markets generally, like, longer term?
Yeah. So, in general, guys, I think you have to try and be data driven. You have to be reflexive. You have to be willing to move, but you also have to deal in probabilities, right? And prepare for all eventualities, but assign probabilities accordingly. For me now, I think it's more likely than not that the bottom is in. Now, a lot of people think that is synonymous with saying, hey, that we're flipping out of a boom, we're going to go straight into a bull. Absolutely not. We could move into a period here where we range for 2 or 3 years between 17 and 25K. I think that would be excruciating. It would blow a lot of people's accounts. But I think the bottom is more likely than not in. We've had several big liquidation events with 3AC, with this huge miner recently. I think we've probably seen peak Fed bearishness. The time to at least start to consider accumulating is here. I'm not saying, guys, go in and spank everything here, but 17, 18K, which we swiped a few times for Bitcoin, like 70, 75% down from the top. If you believe in the longevity and overall future of the space, which I do, I think I've said a couple of times on the call, I think this sector will outperform most of the sectors over the next 10 years, and that's why I'm here, right? Then the time to start building the portfolio, again, I'm not talking short term here, guys, but if you're thinking long term, if you're thinking over a 5 to 10 year period, this is the time. And Bitcoin, Ethereum, I'm not talking about SHIB or whatever, but the blue chips, this is the time. I'm buying down here, guys. But again, I'm taking a very long term perspective on this, and I think people that start DCAing around these levels, or even if this is not financial advice, but if you went all in here and then you revisited your portfolio, if you were just buying Bitcoin or ETH, in 5 years, you're gonna be probably laughing, guys.
Listen, I'm going to go all in here, and if it doesn't work out, I'm coming for you.
You can kill me over that breakfast in Wigan, yeah? In a couple of weeks, mate.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, I'm going to take you to Wigan and get you the biggest breakfast and knock you, and get your food drunk, bro. Food hangover. What do you call it? Is it a food hangover? Yeah, I just sort of finish here with the. Remember in the last bear market, it wasn't the fact that we dropped so hard; it was the length of time. It felt like it was going to go on forever. I remember thinking this is never going to end, and it got to a point where you never even checked the price of Bitcoin anymore. And when it pumped, finally, you were like, "Fucking hell, what's Bitcoin? What's fucking Bitcoin?"
So true, man.
We
So
haven't
true.
even got to that level yet, to that place yet. We've come down, we've bounced, we haven't even leveled out properly yet. We've just so there's such, as you said then, I would expect that to be, at least 18 months of sideways drag, and that's going to be what kills everyone, not the fucking, because the market dropped and everyone was like, yeah, let's fucking go. Everyone's going crazy. I'm like, it's not even hurting people anymore. No one's fucking bothered. It's the boredom. It's the persistent boredom that is going to kill people and wipe people out of these markets. Because that's when you start making mistakes, because you try and spice it up by over trading, and then you start revenge trading. Before you know it, you've got no money left, isn't it? So that's a great point to sort of close on.
I really enjoyed this, guys. Honestly, thanks for having me. I would be a more than willing guest to come on in future and have some more banter again. But it was a lot of fun, guys, and I look forward to doing it again.
We'll get you on again.
Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, we'll get you on again.
It was incredible. Thank you.
You've been a great speaker. Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, sir. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Spacey's done. Cheers, guys.